Within you, there is the power to accomplish anything. There is the power to endure anything, to navigate any difficulties, any challenges, to push through any boundaries, and to ultimately reach all of your goals, all of your desires, and to do so in the most peaceful and blissful way possible. Now, this all sounds great, but you're wondering, how can I do this? What sort of secret pill do I have to take? What guru do I have to meet? How much money do I have to pay? Or, anything else that might come to mind. But the truth is, all of this, right? All of these keys to happiness, to inner peace, to spiritual development, to embracing and becoming one with our true self, all lie within. And they all depend upon relying and leveraging and using our inner strength. Now, when I use the term inner strength, I'm not referring to some hidden superpowers that we all have that enables us to fly or teleport or do anything else that you see in some of these Marvel movies. I'm talking about a real, a tangible, even though we can't perceive it necessarily, it is there. We can feel it. In fact, if you quiet your mind right now, if you just allow your body and allow your thoughts to drift away, you can almost feel this vibration. I'm feeling it right now, actually, in the form of goosebumps, in the form of chills. And all of that's to say that there is this deep, endless amount of strength within me. It's also within you. And it's within every single soul that has ever lived, lives, and will ever live on this earth. But the sad reality is many of us don't know that we have this strength, right? We tend to diminish our natural and inherent abilities. We tend to discount the strength that God has given all of us, right? There's that famous verse in the Quran that says that, God doesn't test anyone more than their abilities to withstand it or to overcome it. And so with that notion in mind, no matter how difficult things may seem, no matter how insurmountable the odds, there is this feeling and there is this ability to push even beyond that. And trust me, this isn't me just, saying things to make you feel good, trying to inject a lot of positive thoughts and enthusiasm and just kind of get you motivated and jazzed up. This is something that if you really travel deep to the core of your being, you'll know what I'm talking about. You'll know what kind of a strength lies within. And this strength takes on many forms, starting with the most basic, starting with the physical, right? Take, for example, when you are sick. Well, without you even being aware, your body is trying to heal itself. Your body is so advanced. It's so superior. So superior, in fact, that even the most advanced technology and science and medicine today is still, to this very day, hundreds and hundreds of years after the founding of science and the founding of modern science, is still discovering new ways that the body copes with illnesses, that the body deals with illnesses, that the body recovers. And of course, as time goes on, there's new illnesses and there's new, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, no one of us, had ever heard of some of these viruses that we're experiencing. And so it was a new test to the body. Now, unfortunately, many of us were not able to come out on top. And that's obviously something that's very well known. But for many of us, we were able to endure. We got infected with a disease or with a virus. We overcame that virus. And even though it created a lot of complications and difficulties, our body overcame that new challenge. So when you think about it, there's so much going on internally within your body, within your DNA, within your being, your essence, that has already been pre-programmed, that has already been ready for this new obstacle, this new challenge. But let's go even a step further than that, right? Because the physical is only one layer of your inner strength. There's also the emotional layer of inner strength, or the mental layer of inner strength. These two, you can argue, are even more powerful or even more potent than your actual physical inner strength. Because it's from thoughts that the body gets its motion, it gets its impetus, it gets its intention, right? Everything happens with the mind as the chief architect. So if you control your thoughts, as the wisdom goes, you can control your life. You can control your body. In fact, there's a lot of spiritual teachers out there that have done a much better job than I am doing right now explaining the powers of using the mind to heal the body and using the mind to overcome any sort of challenges they may be facing. So you have this incredible ability. Every challenge that you face is not an attempt to break you down, but to help you rise up. And it does so precisely in the form of a challenge, right? Because it's not until we are actually challenged and stressed and tested that we discover our inner strength, right? If there's no challenges at all, we would never grow. Growth happens outside of the comfort zone. Growth happens outside of the day-to-day. It happens when we're tested. That's when we start to see, or at least I hope that we start to see, because a lot of the times many of us will encounter that challenge. We'll become sick, for example, to use sort of the physical inner strength I was talking about earlier. We'll get sick, we'll complain about it, we'll be very uncomfortable, we'll not see the true purpose of that illness. And then once we're done, we act as if it never happened. We don't appreciate anything. We move on, going back to doing the same thing that we were doing before the illness until the next illness comes. And then it's kind of a on repeat, right? We get frustrated, we complain, we're not grateful for what we have. And so you don't want to do that, right? You want to use each challenge hopefully only once. Life is an amazing classroom that never ends until we ourselves decide that we want to end this chapter. We want to end this lesson. So it's through those tests that you actually discover your inner strength. And to kind of continue on, the mental and emotional strength that I was talking about, your mind, as controlled by your soul, as controlled by the intention, right? Because everything starts with an intention. If the mind is the chief architect of the body, well, then the soul is the chief architect of the mind, right? There is something deeper than thoughts, and it's consciousness, right? It's hard to define it. It's hard to put it into words. It's hard to encapsulate it by this thing that we call the mind, but it's what lies beyond the mind, right? Because even when the mind fails, even when your body dies and everything shuts down, there is still that consciousness, right? So when we say control your mind, what we're really saying is actually pierce your mind, go through your mind, go beyond your mind, and discover the consciousness that ultimately controls the mind, that ultimately steers the mind. And when I say control, I want to be careful here, because it's not like you're behind the scenes and you're pulling levers and it's really just a matter of noticing it, because it's really hard to control the mind. If I told you control every single thought, well, then you'll probably just think more thoughts, and without you even knowing it, you're actually under the control of your mind rather than controlling your mind. So the purpose here is not to control the mind, but the purpose here is to be aware of what lies beyond the mind. to be aware of that consciousness, to be aware of that soul. And when you can do that, then you can start to see, as I was mentioning earlier, this inner strength, this infinite strength, right? I think somewhere in the Bible, Christ said that, you have the power to move mountains. Many of us might laugh at that. How can I move a mountain? I'm just one person. How can I move this thing that's seemingly immovable? Well, of course, it's an analogy, right? I'm not attempting that all of us go to Everest or, go to the big mountain ranges around us and try to move them. But the point here that Christ was really trying to get across is that you have such an amazing strength within you that perhaps you yourself, in fact, it's very possible that you yourself are not even aware of that, right? It's out of a deep love for humanity that God has given us the strength. It's not like we're cast out into this world and we don't know what we're doing and we're just kind of idly, roaming by and experiencing suffering after suffering after suffering. It's really no, we have the tools, but just like anything else, we have to build on those blocks, right? It's not like, an infant can all of a sudden go from, crawling to running, right? It has to happen in steps. They have to learn one thing before they can move on to the other. And every lesson thereafter is a building block on what came before. So sometimes when you see, I have this conversation sometimes with others, about the suffering that unfortunately exists in the world today. Not everyone that experiences that suffering will be able to get out of that suffering, right? And that's the unfortunate part. That's one of the things that gives me great grief sometimes, or gives me, a feeling of sadness, because even though we all have that capability, unfortunately, not all of us are able to kind of transcend that suffering or to see beyond it, because we're still in our mind, we're still in the complexities of life, we're still experiencing real problems at the physical level. It's kind of like that, if you ever remember in school, or maybe in psychology, like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And at the very bottom, it's the survival, it's shelter, it's food, and then as you progress up the ladder, then obviously you desire and you crave deeper things, right? You crave a sense of belonging, you crave a sense of companionship, and of course, at the very top of this period is the need for self-realization, right? And this is a small part of the period, but it's the most important part of the pyramid. It's the part that's at the very top. You can almost call it as the culmination of the human spiritual journey. But as I said, not everyone gets to the top of this pyramid. A lot of us, unfortunately, are still stuck at the need to be loved, or the need to find shelter, or the need to find home. And these are all important needs. I'm not trying to discredit it, but chances are, if you're looking for those things, then finding your true self, or being one with God, is probably not high on the list of priorities. And I understand that, right? We have to kind of take care of the most pressing and immediate needs before we can then ask ourselves and go on a quest to discover life's deepest mysteries and to enhance our life even further. If you think about it, life is really just trying to take one step forward at a time, trying to go one step forward. You never want to just walk in place, and you never want to walk backwards, right? If you get tired, pause, rest, take a break, but always let your momentum be forward. Never let one day pass without you making a step forward. And it could be a baby step. It doesn't have to be a huge, monumental, leap from one day to the next, or 1 month to the next. But just as long as you're continuing to progress forward, that is a successful life. That is a life that is being lived with purpose. So to connect this all back with, the inner strength that I'm talking about, it's on so many different levels, right? Think about all the times that you've doubted yourself about having the ability to do something, right? Whether that was something that you love to do, but maybe wasn't sure about, or maybe you didn't receive the encouragement, or maybe you have kind of a critical, self-critic making you doubt things. Well, these are all just imaginations created by the mind. They're not true reality. Because your true inner strength, if you are able to listen to it, if you are able to follow it, is actually telling you that you can do anything. You can do anything that you can set your mind to. But it's a matter of actually believing in this, right? It's like Wayne Dyer used to say, it's not that I'll believe it when I see it. It's more that I'll see it when I believe it. When your faith comes first, that's when the proof will come. It's not like the ancient gospels where, the skeptics of the prophets and the skeptics of, the wise spiritual leaders demanded for God's proof before they could believe in God. It's the other way around. You have to believe in God first in order for all of the miracles, in order for all of the great things to then come. That's why it's called faith, right? If there was a guarantee attached to it, if there was, a condition attached to it, then it wouldn't be called faith anymore, right? Faith is believing in something that is yet to appear, that is yet to manifest, that is yet to fully unfold, fully unravel. So faith is an important element of unlocking this inner strength. Because if you don't believe it to begin with, well, then you'll never really know what lies within. You have to believe it. You have to sense it. And as I mentioned, you can sense this. There is, when the mind becomes still, when you put everything aside for a moment, right? And this is what all meditation attempts to do. You will feel a vibration. You will feel an energy. And this energy goes beyond what is the mind, what is the body. You can just simply refer to it as consciousness, as the energy field, as your soul that's speaking to you. Notice how that sounds interesting, speaking to you, right? If you think about that carefully, your soul is speaking to you, is speaking to this body, is speaking to this form. Because your real identity, your real essence is actually that soul, is actually that endless supply of inner strength. And believe me, life changes dramatically once you discover and tap into this inner strength. Because all of a sudden you can start doing things. You can start taking on risks. You can start exploring the things that you were afraid to do before. You push boundaries, right? One of the things that we need in life is courage. And one of the most detrimental things, obviously, is the opposite of courage, which is fear. And it's amazing how much fear penetrates our lives, right? It's not just, we hear something about planes in the news and we're afraid to fly all of a sudden, or we're afraid of snakes, or we're afraid. It's more deeper than that. Fear is so much more cunning than just kind of the surface fears of I'm afraid of the dark, or I'm afraid of being alone. There's so many different layers to fear. And at each level, it's kind of seeped into our psyche. It's seeped into our mental framework that if we're not careful, if we're not conscious, that fear is just pulling all the strings. And it's preventing us from actually moving forward in life. But with each positive step, with each challenge overcome, with each moment spent in introspection and understanding who we really are, we begin to see that fear is really a shadow. It's not the true source of light. The true source of light is our essence, that inner spirit, that inner strength. And if you can tap into that, well, then you not only have the confidence to do everything, you have the ability and willingness to do everything. Because backing up that inner strength is none other than God, right? If you feel like you are not strong enough, which I never encourage you to feel that, because you should always tell yourself, you should always believe that you can do everything. The truth is you can do everything. But the reason you can do everything is because your soul is a part of God, right? And you and I and everyone else around, we all come from God. So that's why it's so important to put God at the center of everything that you do. Start every task, big or small, with a remembrance of God, with a mention of God, because that will help you tap into that inner strength. God is giving you that strength in endless supply so long as you believe, so long as you are grateful, so long as you use that as a force for good and not as a force for bad, right? Many times people, when they do something bad, it's because they have their own egoic and selfish desires. They never do it out of the goodness of their heart. They never do it out of a desire or an appreciation to connect further with God. But God is working through us, right? You know, it's amazing how without actually being seen, without being heard, without being felt, without all of the tangible and sensory things in which we navigate this world, God, in his infinite greatness and wisdom, is working through us every second of our lives. Why not be conscious of that then? Why not work in harmony with God then? Why not co-create instead of just playing the victim mentality? Instead of just treating every challenge as something that is to be dreaded or to be feared or to be shunned away. Flip that entire perspective on its head and embrace everything. Embrace the difficulties, embrace the challenges. View it as you yourself wanting these challenges in your life. And I know that might sound so crazy and so revolutionary, and certainly in some circumstances, you can't even bring your mind to believe that. But I want you to try to believe that. I want you to not only just try, but to actually see every event in your life and every situation as something that you wish to happen. Because you are co-creating this life with God. You are both creating the challenge and you're creating the solution. And in doing so, you experience quantum leaps of growth that you wouldn't otherwise. So never underestimate your own potential, because backing that potential is none other than God himself. When you realize this, then you truly understand that you are capable of doing anything. Because in essence, God is capable of doing anything. Anyone who has ever doubted God has usually, in my experience, from what I've seen, from what I've read, from what I've heard, from my own experience actually, believe it or not, very, very early on in my journey, when I wasn't in this right state. Now looking back on all that, I see you never want to count God out. You never want to live a single day in your life without appreciating and gaining a glimpse and realizing just how much the divine sort of sprinkles everything into our lives. And the more we are aligned with that, the greater possibilities unfold. We start to push boundaries. We start to do amazing things. So I hope this video left you with a feeling of hope, a feeling of positivity, and not just as a feel-good factor, not just something that will lift your spirits in the next hour or in the next day or in the next week, but hopefully something that can sustain you and something that you can, through the ups and the downs, you can refer to. And as a reminder, as sort of a reset to go within, go deeper, find that inner strength, because you're going to need to pull out that inner strength, and you're going to need it, right? It's all a part of the journey. The keys to get out of this prison are none other than within. So you're going to have to dig deep to find those keys, to unlock those doors, to ultimately get out of the prison and experience the open light. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Would love to hear how you have discovered inner strength, what your thoughts are, what your experiences have been, and any suggestions you might have for others that might be watching and listening. But if you like this video, please drop a like. Consider subscribing as well. I always mention at the end of these videos that this is a growing library. This is not something that is static, and maybe there's some videos that get a little bit older, but if you think about it, the topics and the messages are evergreen. There's really no expert. It's not like current events where after a year or a couple of years that topic's not relevant. In fact, it becomes even more relevant, right? So it's like wine. It becomes better with age. So hopefully you're enjoying the nectars of these videos. Hopefully you're experiencing what it is that I'm experiencing as well, and I hope that we can all journey together toward this common goal of living a more enlightened life, living a more peaceful life, and ultimately remembering what our purpose is and moving towards that purpose. So if you like this video, please drop a like, as I mentioned. I wish you incredible success on this journey. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. But until next time, I wish you a wonderful day and week ahead, and I will see you next time.